Okay, imagine this for a second. You've got like a regular object, maybe a soup can, right? Or just a cardboard box. And somehow it becomes this multi-million-dollar artwork.
Yeah.
Or think about a celebrity portrait painted years ago selling for, what was it, $195 million just last year?
It's pretty staggering.
How does that even happen? How do these everyday things, these famous faces, get so valuable and, stick around for so long? Well, welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take a whole pile of interesting sources, articles, all sorts of research, and we boil it down to the really key stuff for you. Today, we're diving into the world of Andy Warhol. It's vibrant, definitely controversial sometimes, but wow, always groundbreaking. So our mission here is to sort of unpack all this material we've gathered and figure out how someone could go from a pretty humble beginnings in Pittsburgh to basically starting the pop art revolution. We really want to understand what makes his most famous stuff so incredibly valuable and why it still resonates, decades later. When you think about Warhol, what's the one thing that still kind of surprises you or maybe challenges how we normally think about art?
Oh, that's a really good starting point. For me, I think it always comes back to just the sheer audacity, how he really forced us to look again at what art even is, blurring those lines between high art and just, everyday stuff, commercialism. He wasn't just painting pop culture. He sort of became pop culture. And that's a huge shift, really. So, yeah, we're going to trace that whole journey from a pretty quiet kid to this global icon, hitting those key moments in the artworks that really sealed the deal for his legacy. From Andrew Warhol to Andy Warhol, the genesis of an icon.
Okay, so let's peel it back, right back to the start. Before Andy Warhol, there was Andrew Warhol, born August 6, 1928 in Pittsburgh. His parents were immigrants from Slovakia. His dad worked in construction, and his mom was a seamstress in embroidery.
Yeah.
Gives you a picture of, hard work, strong family ties to their Slovakian roots, their Byzantine Catholic faith.
And those humble beginnings are just so crucial, I think, to understanding why he was later so fascinated with American consumer culture. His early interest in art, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually came from something pretty unusual, kind of challenging. When he was 8, he got chorea. It's a nervous system thing, and it basically kept him stuck in bed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So to keep him busy, his mother taught him how to draw. And that apparently just lit the spark. It became this lifelong passion. It gave him this really unique connection between art and this world he was mostly just observing from his bed. After he got better, he kept sketching, kept drawing. And then later, his parents bought him a camera, so he got into photography too. It's kind of remarkable, isn't it? That period of being confined became such a creative starting point.
It really is poignant, being stuck inside like that, and it sparks this huge artistic thing. Do you think maybe being confined back then sort of subconsciously pushed him later, to focus so much on reproducing images of the outside world? Like he was capturing everything he couldn't fully be part of before?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a really insightful connection. That early experience definitely gave him a unique way of seeing things, an observer's eye. He kind of understood the pull, the aspiration tied to consumer goods and celebrities, because he grew up somewhere where those things represented a totally different life.
Yeah.
For Warhol, pop art wasn't just like making fun of things. It was recognizing how everyday brands give everyone this kind of equal access to desire. He lived that himself.
So, a kid stuck in bed drawing with his mom, quite the foundation. Then he goes on to study art formally, right, at Carnegie Institute of Technology in 1945. And then 1949, that's the big move, leaves Pittsburgh for New York City. And that's when Andrew Warhol becomes Andy Warhol. Gets his start pretty quick, working as a commercial artist, famously for Glamour magazine.
Right. And his whole background in commercial art in the 50s was just incredibly important.
Oh.
It was like a direct line to his later pop art vision. He got known pretty quickly for adding these unique touches. He even started experimenting with things like rubber stamps to make these distinct, repeatable images. So this whole experience, making art for ads, for brands, it gave him this insider's view on mass production, branding, commercial appeal. He wasn't just looking at consumer culture from the outside. He was actually helping shape it before he even moved into the fine art world. In that perspective, it definitely shaped his later stuff. 2, the pop art explosion and the factory era.
Yeah, it seems clear that working in commercial art wasn't just a job for him. It really fed directly into that whole pop art idea. So how did those early experiments, like with the rubber stamps, turn into the big, iconic works?
Well, by the late 50s, his painting experiments started getting bolder. He got really fascinated by ads, by brands. He saw them as the new symbols, the icons of American life. and he wanted to show them in this fresh way, bright colors, unique graphic style. It was kind of celebrating them, but maybe critiquing them too, how they were just everywhere. He was basically asking, if a product is everywhere, why shouldn't it get the same artistic attention as, say, a classical portrait?
Okay, wait, putting soup cans up in a gallery in 1962, that must have felt like he was just poking the art world with a stick.
Yeah.
How did the establishment, the critics, actually react? Was it just questioning its legitimacy, or were people like openly angry or just totally confused?
Oh, definitely baffled. And yeah, often pretty scornful. The big moment was 62 when he debuted the Campbell Soup Can series. 32 canvases, one for each flavor. That didn't just stir things up, it really split the art world. A lot of the traditionalists thought it was, frankly, a joke. Like, how could something so ordinary, so mass-produced, possibly be art? But even with all that fuss, it absolutely marked Warhol's arrival. He was the provocateur now. And that style, it caught on fast. Soon it wasn't just soup cans, it was Coca-Cola bottles, and then celebrities, Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, even Mao Zedong later on. It really shows his immediate impact that the Marilyn picture became maybe his most famous single piece.
From soup to celebs, yeah, his style just kind of exploded.
Yeah.
And with that kind of attention, in 64, he opens his studio, right? This huge warehouse space he called The Factory. And it instantly becomes this legendary spot in New York. You hear these stories, wild parties, famous people, rich people. Lou Reed even sang about it in Walk on the Wild Side. Sounds like it was quite the scene. But was there maybe a darker side to The Factory's glamour? Maybe something more complex, even exploitive for the superstars who were drawn into his orbit there?
That's a fair question. The Factory was definitely magnetic. A total love for creativity, yeah, but also hedonism. But it was also a place where lines got really blurry. And Warhol, well, he kind of collected people, like he collected images. He built this whole new kind of fame around himself and his superstars. But that fame, it often came with pressure. Sometimes people felt kind of used up by the whole machine they were part of. Warhol really went beyond just being an artist. He became a celebrity himself, a whole cultural thing. He got involved in music, managing the Velvet Underground. Pretty experimental group back then.
Yeah.
And he was always at Studio 54, the big nightclub.
Yep.
So that whole era shows how wide his influence spread. Way beyond painting into music, film, the social scene. He just got branding and image, not just for products, but for himself too. His public persona was like another layer of his art. 3, a life interrupted and lasting legacy.
But that whole wild 60s vibe at the Factory, it took a really terrifying turn, didn't it? In 1968, this radical feminist, Valerie Solanas, she was upset about a film script she'd given him. Apparently, she walked into the factory and shot him.
He was incredibly badly injured, had to wear a surgical corset for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Just a horrifying event. It must have changed everything for him.
Oh, absolutely it did. And it makes you think, how do things like that, external events, shape an artist's work, their whole persona even? The shooting definitely put the brakes on the wilder excesses of the 60s at the Factory. Security got way tighter. Those big infamous parties, they became much less common. It was a real turning point in his life.
Yeah.
Made him more guarded, maybe more introspective. Solanas, she turned herself in, pleaded guilty. But the impact on Warhol, yeah, profound. And it lasted.
Still, even after that trauma, Warhol kept pushing things in the 70s and 80s. He got even more into film, made over 60 movies, a lot of them really experimental.
Right.
I mean, things like sleep just 6 hours of a guy sleeping.
Yeah.
Or eat 45 minutes of someone eating mushrooms.
Right.
And then in the 80s, he embraced MTV, had his own show, still blurring those lines between art, entertainment, media. Yeah, he kept working. But sadly, his later years were also tough health-wise. He had ongoing gallbladder issues. In February 1987, he went in for surgery in a New York hospital. And initially, they said the surgery went well.
Oh, no.
But then, just 2 days later, February 22nd, 1987, he died. He was only 58. Such an untimely end for someone so influential, so, vibrant, left behind this huge legacy that we're still talking about.
And absolutely still feeling, more than 3 decades later. Okay, maybe some of the super experimental films didn't hit the mainstream quite as hard, but those iconic images, Marilyn, the soup cans, they are everywhere. On T-shirts, posters, mugs, all over the world. That's a legacy that definitely lasts way beyond the gallery walls. 4, deeper dive into famous and expensive artworks. Okay, so let's really get into some of these specific artworks now, because the stories behind them, and especially the prices they fetch, are just fascinating. They really tell you a lot about Warhol's genius, I think. First one, Shot Sage Blue Marilyn. This portrait of Marilyn Monroe from 1964 is his most expensive painting ever, sold for, get this, $195 million at Christie's in New York, May 2022, bought by Larry Gagosian, the big art dealer.
Wow, and the name itself, Shot Sage Blue Marilyn, had this really wild story. The shot part, it's literal. Shortly after he made the Marilyn series in '62, someone actually broke into the factory, found a stack of the Marilyn canvases, and fired a gun at them.
You're kidding.
Nope, they had to be repaired. And the weird thing is, Warhol never actually met Marilyn Monroe in person.
Really?
Yeah. Kind of ironic, given how tied together their images are now.
Right.
His Shot Marilyn series, they're all 40 by 40 inches, different color schemes. They became instant icons. Not just because they're striking, but because they capture something about celebrity, right? How it's manufactured, but also kind of fragile. It really shows his silk screen technique, taking mass media photos, replicating them, making them symbols completely removed from their original context.
From celebrity icons to, well, the soup can again. That Campbell's soup can. Hard to believe now, but when it first showed up, it wasn't exactly a hit, was it?
No, far from it. It's funny how that simple soup can is basically the symbol of pop art now, all thanks to Warhol. But yeah, when he showed the whole set in '62, remember, one canvas for each of the 32 flavors,
Yeah.
the critics, the public, pretty much snubbed it. The gallery owner, Irving Bloom, he actually ended up buying the whole set himself for just $1,000 because no one else would.
Wow, only $1,000.
Right. So jumping from $1,000 then to $11.8 million for just one of them, the Pepper Pot canvas, which sold in 2006 again to Larry Gagosian for Eli Broad this time. That leap isn't just about inflation. It shows how the art world, which was so dismissive at first, eventually had to accept Warhol's whole idea that art could be mass-produced, confrontational, and really reflect the times.
Yeah.
It fundamentally changed how we define artistic value. It was this huge statement about, like, the democracy of pop culture.
Okay, then there's the Brillo box. Looks simple, right? Just a yellow plywood box with the Brillo logo in blue and red. But it's one of his most famous pieces. Sold for over $2.65 million, plus the buyer's fees. What makes a wooden copy of a soap pad box worth that much?
Well, it really forces you to ask, what is art anyway? There's this great little story about it from an HBO documentary. Apparently, it was first bought back in 1969 for just $1,000 by the parents of the filmmaker, Lisanne Schuyler.
No way.
Yeah, and they used it as a coffee table in their apartment for 2 years. There are even pictures of baby Lisanne sitting on top of it.
That's incredible, a coffee table.
Exactly. So the Brillo box, going from coffee table to multi-million-dollar artwork. That just perfectly captures Warhol's big challenge to the art world. The value isn't always about beauty or skill. It's about the story, the context, the artist just boldly blurring that line between a product and a masterpiece. It's all about questioning who decides what art is.
All right, finally, let's touch on a darker side of his work. The Death and Disaster series. Silver Car Crash, Double Disaster, actually held the record for his most expensive piece for a while. Sold for $105 million back in 2013. These prices, they keep climbing. It's staggering. But, for people outside the art market, it can seem almost absurd. Is there a point where the price just takes over from the art? Or is that maybe part of Warhol's point, too?
That's a really important question. Warhol is definitely aware of the market. Some people argue these crazy prices just prove how right he was about consumerism. But Silver Car Crash itself, the artwork, it's digging into something much darker. It shows the aftermath of a car crash, this mangled silver car, a twisted body. And it's huge, like over 8 feet by 13 feet. He used silk screening to repeat this news photo, not just to show the horror, but almost to numb you to it through repetition, like how the media just throws tragedy at us constantly. And adding to the mystique, it was apparently only shown publicly once in the 26 years before it sold for that record price. This series also has other works like Green Car Crash, Burning Green Car Eye, that sold for $71.7 million in 2007. So it's this consistent theme, using these really dramatic, disturbing images. It explores how society consumes violence like entertainment, really challenging us about our own relationship with those images. Outro.
So what a journey. We've gone with Andy Warhol from, Andrew Warhola, this young kid in Pittsburgh dealing with illness, to a really sharp commercial artist in New York. And then boom, this pop culture icon whose art just completely rewrote the rules for what art could even be. His impact is just, well, undeniable. You see it in the big museum, sure, but also just on everyday stuff carrying those famous images.
Yeah, this whole deep dive really makes you think about how Warhol intentionally just smashed together high art and commercialism. Putting everyday stuff and celebrities on canvas, it really made people question traditional ideas about artistic value, about originality, about what an artist even does in society. He forced us to ask, what actually has meaning in a world driven by consumerism? And how do we decide what something is worth? He showed that art could be absolutely everywhere, reflecting our own lives right back at us, whether we find it beautiful or, unsettling.
And that kind of leaves us with something to chew on, doesn't it? In this world we live in now, just flooded with images and brands, where everything from a soup can to a celebrity photo can sell for millions.
Yeah.
What really is art today? And how much of its value is shaped by the exact same celebrity culture and consumerism that Andy Warhol captured so famously and maybe so prophetically?